Hi, I'm Marc Wainer. The word mentor has evolved to mean a trusted advisor, friend, teacher, and wise person. Mentoring is when a person invests time, energy, and personal know-how to assist the growth and development of another person. Without exception, the incredible people who have appeared on this show have all acknowledged that mentorship has played an incredible role in their success. If you believe that you have the drive and ambition to succeed, all you have to do to benefit from their experience is register on our website. It could change your life. Judge Bernard Ngoepe, welcome. I'm honored, Your Honor, that you have agreed to join us on the show.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Your background, you started schooling in a small village in Limpopo. At what stage did you decide that law was something that you wanted to pursue? Was it something early on in your life?
Not quite, not early on in my life. And like any youngster, I suppose I changed my mind 15 times before settling finally on what I wanted to do. But that was part of growing up. But it was also a reflection of the environment in which I grew up. Things such as career guidance and options in life were not there. So, for example, the people who made an impact on you immediately in those small villages then would be your teacher, would be your minister of religion, would be a nurse, and so on and so forth. But as I grew up, and very much late, and if I remember correctly, I think I was doing my matric at the time. It was only then that I really decided to bring my mind onto doing law.
Okay, and then you started your law career as a prosecutor.
I did for 3 months.
Because
yes.
It was obviously difficult in those days for black people to get articles, and you succeeded in getting articles. And I think you were admitted to the bar on a very special date, June the 16th, 1976, the day of the Soweto riots.
Some of my friends used to tease me about that. And it's part of, I mentioned this as part of the difficulty that you referred to earlier on, the hurdles that one had to get over, because during my time, it was not easy for a black person to get articles of clerkship. I only managed to get articles finally as a result of the intervention by one of my professors into an Afrikaans-speaking firm in Johannesburg. And at that time, it was a rarity for a black person to be seen to be serving articles in an African-speaking firm.
That's why there were riots.
That's why my friends later teased me. They said, well, the first candidate from an Afrikaner firm admitted on the 16th of June, it sparked some riots.
Okay, so then your career takes off, and ultimately you become a judge. You become judge president of the North and South Gauteng High Court, an acting judge on the Constitutional Court, acting judge on the Supreme Court of Appeal. You have 3 honorary doctorates, one from Colombia in South America. And you also co-chaired the Amnesty Committee of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, were Chancellor of UNISA, and now the tax ombud. So in business, and I suppose in people's personal life, we all make decisions. Sometimes the right decisions, sometimes the wrong decisions. Looking back on your career as a judge, do you feel you made any wrong decisions or decisions that you would like to change?
I don't think that I would regret some decisions I made, judgments I made, but I would accept that, like all human beings, I might have been wrong here and there for the Supreme Court of Appeal to correct me.
Okay, so let me move on. People feel that SARS have adopted more recently a very heavy-handed approach to collection, but a very lax approach to refunds. I think this is one of the big complaints. SARS blame their systems, whether that's true or not. The systems seem to work when they collect, but not seem to work when they have to make a refund.
2 points there, but the one with regard to the delay in paying out refunds is an issue that I had to specifically investigate. I instituted an investigation into that and produced a report about that. And we found that the complaints, a large number of complaints, were justified. And at the same time, Well, we did get some responses from explanations from SARS, for example, to say that they have problem with fraud. They are careful in making out payments because they have a problem with fraudulent payouts. That is a fair comment. That is understandable. However, there have been instances where, in my report, I indicate that SARS needs to jack up a few things, and they've agreed that they will look into some of these recommendations.
Well, that's good news.
Yes.
You mentioned your teachers, the nurse, people who were mentors when you were at school. Have you had other mentors that helped you throughout your career?
Yes, I did. Perhaps I should mention a particular one. He's now deceased. He was a lawyer, the late GMPJ, who was an attorney, one of the first black attorneys. I think history tells us that at one time he worked with Mandela and Tambo as their article clerk. And yes, one of the people who made an impact on me, and I would always try to size myself up against him to see whether I could attain that particular height. But there's one thing I need to say about the issue of mentoring, and it is that from my experience, for somebody to be your mentor, they need not know you. They need not even talk to you. It's sufficient if you simply know about them, even if you know them from a distance, you read about them, and you hear about them. And that's what happened with me.
If it's the right mentor and the right mentee, you form this kind of bond, and it's not like you seeing each other every day or every month. It's a slow process, and as long as it's also a confidence thing. If somebody who's starting out knows there is somebody that can give me advice, because I make the point, someone like myself, and particularly more white privileged people, grew up and we got advice around the dinner table. We had a network of people. You made the point, when you were at school, the only people that could give you any advice were your teachers and your minister and so on. So a lot of young black people out there don't have that network, and that's what we're trying to create for them. Yes. So with that, can I ask you, how many hours, now that you retired, so you've got some time, how many of your valuable hours can you give us to mentor some young people?
I'm afraid my answer is going to be vague, not because I'm selfish with my time, but I view the whole exercise of mentorship as something very important.
So can I put you down?
An hour.
5 hours?
As you accumulate? Yeah, 5.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. I would like to express my
gratitude.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much,
by giving you a copy of my book, Making My Mark.
Much appreciated. And, I take it you did?
I did.
I always insist. All right, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
it's been
a
pleasure.
Sure, thanks. Thank you.
If you would like to be mentored by Judge Ngoepe, please visit our website and register as a mentee. There are hundreds of hours available from dozens of people from all fields. It could change your life. See you after the break. With me in the studio, I'm pleased to have Marc Lubner. Marc, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yours is a very interesting career. Some people will think you're a little bit crazy in terms of the route you've chosen to take, because you were born with the proverbial silver spoon in your mouth. Your family, your grandfather, Marc Lubner, was the founder of the Plate Glass Group and one of the early charitable people in the South African community. That reins were taken over by your father, Bertie. You spent some time in the family business in Australia. You came back into the timber side of the business. And then you decided that you were going to follow your father's footsteps and your grandfather's footsteps and devote your time and energy to the upliftment of others. Why?
Mark, in truth, I wasn't born into a family that had money at the time of being raised as a kid. The family was only just starting to build the business, and in fact, any money we had was being used to recapitalize the company and retain our equity in the business. So I didn't grow up with, fancy motor cars or that kind of a framework. I came from a background which was Saturday mornings were spent working in the timber yard, taking stock. We used to do stock take, all year round, literally from the age of 12 onwards, 13 onwards. So I kind of got a sense of the importance of not only hard work, but recognizing the importance of people at every single level in an organization. In other words, I didn't grow up believing that the only important people were the bosses in an organization. I was taught that your stock manager or your storeman or your cleaner were every bit as important as the chief executive officer. Why did I get involved in philanthropy to the point where I gave up day-to-day practice of commercial activities? Was because of two fundamental, I think, impacts. One, I was fortunate to start a charity organization called the Smile Foundation with Nelson Mandela. I actually literally sat in his home for many, many months, over years, in fact, building the concept of an organization that could cater for children who had facial deformities, that did not have the means to access surgical intervention and the psychosocial support. And the second was an engagement that I had in philanthropy through my dad. I watched how his life, at a much later stage than mine, morphed from being driven purely by profits to being an individual who started to contribute more and more of his energy, his time, towards resolving community problems. And I started to recognize that everything that I'd ever learned in business could effectively be put to work in this particular space, where the dividend would be far greater than a cash dividend. It would, in fact, be the dividend of seeing smiles on people's faces.
But your father started Africa Tikkun, which I've personally experienced. I think it's the most incredible organization. Just tell the viewers a little about what it is, what it does.
It started as an organization that, from a heartfelt perspective, the late Chief Rabbi Harris and my dad, seeing what was going on in the townships of South Africa post-apartheid, felt tremendously heartsore. So they started to address various programs that were being offered to them by individuals within the community. So the very first project was, in fact, a project where they raised money to build, and Biddy contributed a fair chunk of his own money to that project, to build shacks for elderly people in the townships of South Africa. So the very first project was designed to renovate and rebuild shacks into a more habitable environment, and some 300 shacks we rebuilt. Very importantly, the way that they went about it was, in fact, not simply just taking charitable money and blowing it. They necessarily partnered with people within the local community to get the job of work done. So the payment was affected to people within the local community, and there was this multiplier effect, money got spent in the community. But I fell in love with the concept of youth in our townships who are aspiring to do more than simply get social grants and social handouts. And so we created a model which was very different to the vanilla type charity initiative. We said, where does this all lead to? We asked ourselves, which we still do every day, the so what question. We're doing all of this, but so what? Where does that lead to? We came up with what we called a cradle to career model, where we said the end game, what does it look like when everything is done and all the money is spent, are youngsters in jobs for which they are well suited. Productive individuals who are delivering on a job in a career direction which meets their own personal aspirations. And then we started thinking backwards to how are we going to achieve that. We started early childhood development programs. We built preschools. And attached to those preschools, we then said, what's the phase that a child goes through post their preschool? They go to school, and bluntly speaking, 10 years or so ago, the educational system was certainly far more flawed than it even is at the present moment. So we provided extra after-school hour curricular activities designed to help youngsters to, in fact, develop the confidence, the ability within themselves to access things like the World Wide Web, to play in a sport as a team member, not just as an individualist, to give back to society in their own societies by doing clean-up campaigns. And then we started providing vocational testing at a particular age, typically 16, helping these kids with a selection of subject choices for matric.
Because you've now gone into high school as well.
We've now gone into high school. And then we help them with an extracurricular academic program. So we run Saturday schools. So during the week, for argument's sake, our youth development program orients around 5 particular pillars that all have a focus on either health, personal mastery, things like mindfulness, where do I fit in the world, how do I become a happy individual in the world, all the way through to hard skills, math, science instruction by way of example. And then we run a post-matric career development 3-month program, which typically looks at more bespoke type programs for companies that contract the ED spend, enterprise development spend, with us. We then have an initiative which actually places kids into job opportunities. And a third entity in Tikkun, which is our investment arm, it acts as a private equity investment arm. As a level 2 BE investor, we buy equity stakes in companies, invariably vendor funded. It's happened in Redefine, where the intention really is not necessarily just to use the dividend to enrich anybody, which most, frankly speaking, or many of the BE deals have been structured to do, but it's in fact true empowerment, because we use that dividend to fund the skills development programs for individuals who we hope will then come and work in those companies.
Don't go away. We'll be continuing this conversation with Marc after the break. Welcome back. We are continuing our fascinating conversation with Marc Lubner. I've been to your Diepsloot facility. I think you're a little modest because you start from preschool through to high school, but you also have for the community people. I remember we're making necklaces or bracelets or something. You have a community center for the community. You have a feeding scheme, not just for the kids who are at the school, but for people in the community. So and I think you even planted vegetables.
Yeah.
So you do a whole lot. Now, two things that fascinate me. What is your, first of all, so do you follow in the schools the same curriculum?
Yeah. We work with the local schools to help basically address, through a combined effort, an end result that says we want kids finishing matric who kind of are directed on the career path, whether it's vocational, whether they're going to go through trades, whether they've got the competencies to go to higher education, or whether they're going to just simply enter the job market.
And what sort of pass rate do you get in matric?
Since we've implemented our Saturday school program as an added element to our weekday program, we've seen pass rates move from about 55% to well in excess of 95%. And
That's
about
unbelievable.
15% of those are now university graduates. And each year we set ourselves benchmarks, impact benchmarks. Our benchmark for next year is to get to the point where at least 20% of those kids who are coming to our programs will matriculate with university entrances.
And for our viewers, so they understand, these are kids from really disadvantaged communities, kids who, growing up in Diepsloot, some of them are from immigrant families. They can't even enroll in our schools, if you like, or government schools because they're not South African citizens, etc. So I think you're being a little bit modest because I've seen what you do. I'm not going back simply because I found it too emotional. When I was taken through the school and all the preschool kids came around and started hugging me, I just burst into tears, and it's no good for my image. So it really is quite incredible, and I think the other thing is the cost.
Right.
I know that you've got a lot of donor funding, but approximately what does it cost you per year for a kid in school or high school?
Okay, a preschool is about 7,000 Rand a year. Our most expensive programs are costing us in the order of about 19,000 Rand a year. And that's for those kids that are getting Saturday school training, after schools training, Saturday schools training, mentoring, career development activities.
So I have to tell our viewers, as I said earlier, I've been exposed to Africa Tikkun, to one of their facilities. They are doing a fantastic job. It takes, Marc makes it sound easy, but it takes a lot of dedication and commitment to do what you're doing, to take these kids, some are orphans, don't have family support, and take them through, as you say, from preschool to post-matric, into jobs, careers, hopefully successfully. So, Marc, we said along the way, clearly, Bertie, your father was a mentor, to some extent your grandfather, Maury. I have no doubt Nelson Mandela was a mentor.
Huge.
And have you had other mentors along the way, I'm sure? Herbie.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very, very fortunate, very blessed. First of all, as I said to you, I spent a lot of time with my grandfather. If I can share a quick story with you, at the age of, 14 and a half, I actually was selected to play first team rugby at my school. My grandfather, on a Friday afternoon, no matter the fact that I had rugby practice and that I was not going to be able to play for the team on the Saturday, which you can imagine at that age, my all and everything, would pick me up in his old beaten-up Valiant, and he would take me to visit customers with him. Before I could go on holiday, I had to earn my pocket money working in the family business. And a lot of the very fundamentals, my grandfather used to have wonderful sayings. Your tochus, he used to say, can only sit in one chair at a time. And it taught me, so you've got 2 chairs in your office, one's being wasted. So there's some fundamental basic values about trust and respecting and appreciating human beings. From my father, I learnt about empathy. And we coined a philosophy, unfortunately post his passing, we coined a value for Tikkun, which is called responsible kindness. And that was a lesson I learned from my dad. He wasn't just the type of guy who would gregariously throw out his cash. He threw time in with the cash, and he took responsibility. So if he was giving somebody money for a crisis, he would work with them through the crisis. It wasn't just simply, well, here's the money,
the check.
And please get out of my hair. So a lot of my life was spent working with him through other people's issues and problems. And then the Mandela Initiative, the best lesson I learned from him was that every child mattered. You know, when I used to go, Mark, and report back to him, because this was like a pet project of his, the Smile Foundation, he never asked me about how much money is being raised, what are our expenses, what are our cost ratios, anything like that at all. He wanted to know the stories about that child was faced with that ailment, where are they now in their developmental program, what other surgeries are needed. Every kid, every child in those days mattered to him. Other mentors along the way, F.W. de Klerk, I had the opportunity to spend, through my dad, time with him. And I was able to share the transition of a man who acknowledged that his original beliefs were wrong. And I saw how there was strength in being able to say, I'm wrong, and to be vulnerable, and to accept that the change that he made would impact upon the lives of thousands.
But something you said earlier, which is, I think, an advantage which we don't always recognize and acknowledge. Grandfather Murray put you in his car, took you to customers, he taught you, you learned from your dad. The people, many of the people who we're trying to reach, to offer mentorship to, don't have that network.
Correct.
Their parents are going to work early in the morning, coming home late. If they want to do something in the world, fashion design or whatever it is, you wanted to do something, whatever it might have been, consultancy, there was somebody in the network. If you couldn't get it from your immediate family, they knew somebody who could give you advice. This is what we are trying to achieve on this program. So it's been a fascinating conversation. You're Jewish, I can't say you should have a sainthood, but you should have. I would now like to put you on the spot. How many hours of your time are you prepared to give us?
Mark, I think that I could certainly commit to a couple of hours a month for an extended period of time. I know the initiative is a one-year initiative, but I'm more than happy.
Mentorship goes longer than that, you know.
It's so once you get involved,
couple of hours a month for a year,
but
30 hours.
Done. My point is, however, and this is really where the challenge is, I've got some individuals in mind in anticipation of the show to challenge on a similar basis. What I'm all about, my soapbox pitch at the moment is, corporate South Africa, stop giving 8.5 billion rand away in one arm, and then through your CSI arm, and corporate South Africa then looking at your enterprise development spend separately. Look at consolidating that spend such that corporates recognize the role that they play as employers, even though the formal sector is not employing much. Certainly we could, if we employed more productive individuals, my belief is, we've all done it. We've all had an individual who we've employed is highly productive, highly motivated. They create more job opportunities. So the challenge to the corporate world is to say, we certainly will mentor. I'll certainly spend those kind of hours, and in fact we'll even extend it to other members of my executive equally. We'll spend time in their particular area of expertise, be it finance or marketing, by way of example. What we really would love to challenge corporate South Africa to do is for a handful of corporates to give us the opportunity to give these youth that we're mentoring real life work experience.
Mark, it's been a fascinating discussion. Really, you're doing the most amazing work, As a token of my appreciation for appearing on the show, I'd like to give you a copy of my book, Making My Mark, Not Your Mark. If you would like to be mentored by Mark, please visit our website and register as a mentee. Hundreds of hours are available. It could change your life. See you next week.